welcome to the beginning of Season 6 of Frame and Reference, episode 225. You're about to drop into a conversation between me, Kenny McMillan, and my guest, Russell Carpenter, ASC, DP of Avatar, Fire and Ash. Enjoy.
I feel like it's certainly an outlier these days in terms of, most of what everybody is doing. So to me, especially getting involved in something like, say, Avatar was like, oh God, I feel like a stranger in a strange land here, because this is this ecosystem of just pure information is huge and extraordinary, and the number of it's not so many tribes when you're doing a more conventional movie, and usually there's back in the day, there was kind of a triumvirate of the director, the DP, the production designer, and then 25 years ago, all of a sudden it was then the visual effects producer. That team became a huge player. And, but usually the director of photography would start fairly soon in the process. And here, even though I spent 3 years on this project, I shot some tests in 2017 on an area Alexa in basically a jungle, and
Right.
on the stage, a real jungle. And Jim said, just make this look as much like Pandora as you can. And so that went well. And I think it set me up for, being invited onto the main gig. These films are made 3-4 times each one, basically, because what you start with a script, and then production designers come in and they start to offer up versions of what Jim is talking about, the kind of places he's talking about. Of course, they have the first Avatar to go on, and so you have you do have a template for how the planet looks. But as they go on, locations are made within the virtual world, and then Jim scouts those locations and may make some changes. And then basically once the locations are set, and now, we're not talking weeks, we're talking maybe a year or so, or a year and a half. And then Jim brings a troop of players in on his team and they start to block out the scenes on a he calls it performance capture stage, because he said that everything's really a performance, it's just not, with these people, and he blocks out his scenes, and he'll actually start to cut, a scene with his editors just to get an idea of, okay, this sets up really well. I don't like this. Let's try it this way, and then finally, now there's another year and a half gone, and now finally the actors come in, and that's when the film that the viewer actually sees really starts to take shape. And then so I came in rather late in the game. But that's how the process goes. But early enough to, because I at first I thought, well, I know what my job is going to be. My job is going to be, we want to make a fusion of our human being actors with the CGI world and do it as flawlessly as we can. And that was my main sweat, for the whole thing. But then Jim said, and I want you to start lighting. Right. So I want you to start lighting the virtual world, which was, right. And that was, that bicycle took me a little while to learn how to ride that.
I did want to know about the lighting of Pandora, because I imagined as a DP, that's a fun thing and a challenging thing to do, because up until recently, lights didn't act like lights in a digital world, and B, you can lights don't have to exist. You can just have a source come out of nowhere. It doesn't have to be on a stand. You can backlight someone with it here and it'll just emit,
Yeah. Yeah, it was very interesting for me getting acclimated to that. And also because the lighting, especially in terms of the software we were using at the time, it was a software package called Gazebo, and it was built on another, complex piece of software, and I forget the name of that is. But it was basically our lighting tool. And at that time, and I know it's changed now because I've seen the latest rigs, it didn't do radiosity or anything like that. But so if you wanted to make it look like a light was bouncing off a plant in the forest, you'd have to put the sunlight coming through and then you'd have to put another light for whatever was supposed to bounce off that. So that became fairly complex. And also, before I get into that actual lighting thing, it's like, I understand going in, I am inheriting kind of like an Akashic record of everything that's gone before. I mean, somewhere there's 6 years of information about everything anybody did, anything that Jim does on the stage. And I can reference that. And I know also with my lighting that what I'm doing is going in and having to talking to Jim about how light lives, say, under the canopy of trees in the forest. He says, I don't want any real just white light anytime. I mean, I want to feel, here's what the light that comes through the canopy, the hard light comes through, and then this is the ambient light that has a cooler tone, and I want to work that in. But also, I always want to put, especially the Na'vi characters, in relationship to the forest. And so when they go by a plant in the Na'vi world, you have this light bouncing up and defining the Na'vi structure, and so I'm doing that, and then I'm of course making a mental note that a year and a half later, when we are on a stage in Wellington and we're doing this scene, and say spiders in the shot, I have to have a light coming up off the stage that hits Spider too. Otherwise, it doesn't look like he's in the same world that everybody else is in. But then going back to that, I did have to get used to the procedure of not being able to quite do the same things that light on a stage would do, but I immediately saw, oh my God, there's so many advantages here. Look, I can have this light hit this character and he's standing in front of something that I really don't want to see a shadow in. So I just put something up that after the light hits him, it just blocks the light and it doesn't hit the wall or whatever, the stone face behind him. And I said, oh, this is really cool. Or there were scenes inside the tents, the Maruis, I think tents, and the light's coming from over here, and that is perfect. But oh my God, there's another structure. There's a mangrove tree blocking that light. Yeah, okay, let's just pretend that mangrove tree doesn't exist. And so those were lovely things. I mean, that was really cool. I like that, except that it's a time intensive process. And I also, in terms of the culture of the lighting artists, who I worked with and who I was directing on these things, there's we were bringing people in from different places, and some people were very conversant with the idea that you stay as true as possible as you can to what light usually does, and physically does. And then some people were coming in from the gaming world, and I would watch what they were doing, and And sometimes I would just have to talk them back from, don't do all the things that you can do in the gaming world, because here we're in the forest and all of a sudden this is looking really artificial and it doesn't look, you know, and so they generally would come into the culture of, okay, let's, and this is the rule for Jim. It has to look real, and all the creatures that are in Avatar, the whales, this creature, this sailfish or something, has to remind people of something that exists on Earth, and it has to move the way this creature would on Earth. So lots and lots of studies just were done on real animals, and the the people who are building the motion would study something real instead of that. And every costume was actually made by Deborah Scott, then taken out and tested. And there were studies done of, if somebody comes out of the water wearing this robe, how does the water fall off? So everything's based on something real. Also inheriting a look basically from the first Avatar, but also working with Dylan Cole, especially in the forest, who was the production designer for all this wonderful stuff that we're seeing. You pick up pretty soon that well, for me, I said, this just looks like the Hudson Valley School of artists who were, I guess this was in the 1825 to 1875 or something. That they were kind of portraying an idyllic light, and there was another group of people called the Luminists. And I said, I really get what this is about here. It's just whatever you're doing with a light, you want the Na'vi or the human being to be in that space and directly connected to nature. So that's that was, and you see that idyllic vision of Pandora throughout, and so, but so I did that for a year, and learning. I'm learning, like the first scene I lit was actually from Avatar: Way of Water, where Kiri and her father Jake are sitting on a dock, and they're dangling their feet into this lovely kind of lit up, Tim loves lit water, you see that in that, you see that in Titanic. Yeah. The water's lit, but you
same place the music comes from.
Yes, exactly. And you can, but you could put your lights down in the water and make them disappear. So if I want to have this rippling effect coming up, it was just, you learn that there are all kinds of things you can do, kind of hacks of what you did in the real world. But again, that takes time. During that time, and if I'm just wondering, let me know. But during that time,
this is the podcast for that.
Yeah. Okay, good. That's a great one. Great. Well, let's wonder. During that time, so I'm doing that, and then my gaffer comes on, and we said, well, let's start looking at everything that's been done and get a taste for what's been done. Well, it was so surprising because so much at that time, and it was about 8 months before I actually started shooting, so much was hadn't really come together as a whole. There were no really whole scenes to look at. So we would kind of, my gaffer, who's quite clever, knows computers very well, would kind of work his way into the system, the library, and we would find, here's a take of this, here's a camera take that Jim did, and let's look at that. And that would give us an idea. As we got closer, we would get more and more information. But the thing was, eventually, we worked our place into a place where we were looking at each scene and trying to recreate in painstaking detail for our scenes where we'd have humans in. Okay, the light's falling this way, and when our human spider gets to this point, the light has to come down. We want the light to hit here, and then it's like he moves into a shadow, and then he moves through a shadow. And that all has to happen completely in sync with what's happening in the CGI world. Otherwise, the whole thing becomes kind of a train wreck. And human beings just know, especially in exteriors, what makes sense and what doesn't. So if things are off that way. So that's that area. But we were also looking at translating everything that Jim is doing on the stage into, well, how does this translate to what Jim's doing in his CGI world? Okay, now we're on a huge stage in Wellington, and how does that translate? And sometimes, so we would have to figure out, one, we're shooting with a real camera, did it just go through the back wall of the set? Or, and so first of all, there's that technical stuff. And then Jim moved the camera from here to here in such a time. Where is that exactly on a real set? And so we had this great person, Casey Schatz, and what he did was he took everything that's in the CGI world, and he would work tirelessly and translate it to, okay, your camera has to be here, and it's 3 feet 10 inches off the ground. It's going to make a movement that goes from here to here, and this movement is basically has to happen in 7.6, whatever. And so when it was that precise, we would do those shots with a motion capture system.
There we go. But I was wondering where you were going. I was like, it's got to be motion control, because watching the film, I watched it at the IMAX
motion
offices.
Control. Yes,
I was like, there's no way they freeballed this. Like, this has to be motion control.
Well,
good for me.
This is a thing. Yes, good for you, because there were, and going in, we thought, well, we're going to do 80% of our shots motion control, and that was our thinking. And so we had everything mathematically figured out. And yes, of course, there were certain scenes that Spider is running through the forest, and he's running with his brothers and Kiri and Took, and they're running up and down this environment, and they land exactly here this time. That was intense mathematical working things out. And that you just had to do. That had to be right on there. And we went to motion control for all that stuff. What we learned, though, is that the CGI world doesn't necessarily drive the world of live action cinematography, because there are times, especially if you've got a Steadicam or Jim's handhold operating the camera, once you've got everything lined up, and we go through a docking procedure at the beginning of each scene, where we know where the motion capture cameras know on our real set exactly where our camera is, but they also know, but the computer system knows exactly where everything is in the CGI world. So what we do is we line up our live camera with exactly where the CGI camera was. And then once they're locked, they're locked. So if Jim's hand holding something and he's doing an over the shoulder shot, and he's thinking, maybe this just works a little bit better over here. Or what if I pan over here and do this to bring in the scene? That now is driving the CGI world. So wherever he pans his camera, he is seeing what should be there in the CGI world. So once we went through that alignment process at the beginning of the scene, there was much more freedom than you expect. Unless, of course, it is one of those, we got to be totally right on the money, right place, right time scenes.
Right.
So Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say when you're in, because I did also notice a bit of handheld, which my friend Blake Wiley was actually, he just saw it last night and he was he knew I was going to interview and he's texting me. He's like, can you ask him this? He also wanted to make sure that you knew that the scene of the ash people like flying over the mountain with the like lights streaming through the smoke, he said that was his favorite shot. But he's just a guy, he's not a film guy necessarily. But when you have scenes with multiple Navi and your handheld, is it just a bunch of actors around Spider and maybe whoever else, or like how are you visualizing? Is there like in whatever eyepiece you're using, is there sort of a maquette or kind of thing going on, or how is that working functionally?
This is the thing. Okay, so there was between the first Avatar and the second Avatar, there was a lot of work, a lot of technological process. One doesn't necessarily have to do with image capture, but with keeping Jim's sanity and the sanity of everybody around him. Which, well, in the first Avatar, you have a group of people, and they're supposed to be looking up at where Jake is, which is, he's quite tall. And the eye lines all have to be the same. And so they were using, at that time, I think they were basically using a tennis ball on a stick. And it never looked quite right. I mean, they do take after take to get people looking in the same place at the same time. And especially if you're doing sync dialogue and, Jake or Court is supposed to move from this place to this place. It never works. So what Jim asked Ryan Champney, who works at Lightstorm, to head up was to find a way to get a system that let the actor know exactly where he had to look. So he came up with this thing that is basically based on the Skycam system that you would see at football games or something like that. But this was super, super trick. I mean, it had a glorified iPhone hanging from a stick so you have 4 cables coming in. There's a mechanism that has all these gyros in it, so that when the thing is flying around the room in some sequences, like there's a sequence where Quaritch is in their bridgehead, and he's talking with Spider, who's sitting on a table. Now, this is, I think, in the first, and he's all over the place. He's up. The Quaritch is up, down, leaning. He walks over here. He kneels. Something like that. I can't. This was in the first one, and So this thing, it was like a little bumblebee. It would just move around the room on these cables, and then the Quaritch's performances would be on that little micro iPad. So the actor Jack Champion was looking in exactly where he had to look all the time. Of course, it was then we on the lighting side, we have to take in, okay, all right, we have to keep our lighting out of the way. We have to keep our, we have to be cognizant of shadows. In that location, it was pretty easy because everything's fluorescent light. And that became less of a problem than I thought it was going to be. So there's that technology. There's Jim, because we were going to go with a larger sensor size, which would drive the size of the lenses up. Jim set somebody to work on, okay, how do we pare the weight of the camera down when it's handheld or when it's on a steady cam? What kind of lenses can we use that are lightweight enough to not add to the weight? So that was a project. And eventually we found 2 prosumer Fujinon lenses that were a fraction of what the Premista Fuji lenses, the zooms, 8 inches long. Each one was 2.2 pounds. They're amazing. They're the most amazing lens. And I looked at them, I looked at them on a big screen. And I said, I'm not seeing a difference between these little lenses and the Premista. I mean, this is amazing. So we really looked at it because the computer, I mean, basically they tracked in line perfectly. So that problem got solved. But the biggest problem and the biggest piece of technology, going back to what you asked me, was the what something a really souped up version of, I think they had something like Simulcam, but this Simulcam would basically do real-time composites and really good composites. I mean, there was nothing flaky about the composite. There was a lag time of like 3 to 4 frames, which is nothing. But this is where the technology got amazing, because so in this big record of where everything is now, the computers know where everybody is. It knows where the Navi players are, the CGI players. It knows where every single asset is. Oh, there's a couch over here. Not a couch, but something over here. There's a tree over here. Yeah, and but when you introduce a human being into that, also, Spider's not going to be loaded up like he was when they were doing the virtual stuff. He's just the character. So they knew where everything was, and then on the camera we also had a system, like a depth sensing system that says, okay, Spider is 5 feet away from us. This Navi, the computer knows that the Navi now is 7 feet away from the camera. So when the virtual Navi goes behind Spider, it instantly cuts out a matte. And so it just, like anybody would, they disappear for, a little bit, and then they come out behind Spider. And if they walk, if the Navi is 4 feet away and Spider's, or 3 feet away and Spider's 5 feet away, it works in reverse. The Spider disappears. So we were getting real-time lineups of where everybody was. And it was so great because I could tell, I mean, really accurately if my lighting was working or not, And of course, this is we tried to work this all out ahead of time. But then there's also a lot of improvisation when we get to the sets, and so that was huge. The Simulcam thing was just a whole game changer, I think, and such a valuable tool for me.
When you guys are on like space, I was like, you guys are like doing the space shuttle, and we're still finding rocks over here. I was wondering about like the emulation of stuff.
Wait a minute. I have a counter argument. When you say space shuttle, every shot seemed like we were launching a satellite, because there were so many people, so many camps of computers around. Finding rocks on the beach could be a lot more joy in that. I'm just saying, you're on a set, you've got actors, or you're out in the woods, and there's just a joy in terms of that. And feeling like at the end of the day, oh, we got a great scene. It wasn't that performance. That actor's performance was amazing. That's something you have to give up when you're operating this way.
I was not going to, don't get me wrong, I don't envy you, but it is cool.
It was really a great challenge. It was because of all the moving parts. It was just, I'm kind of a Murphy's Law, but whatever can go wrong will go wrong. So there's like, okay, what are we doing on an aesthetic level? But are we sure that everything that has to be there and technically lined up is there? Because you don't want to, screw up.
I just thought of two separate questions, but while we're still on the lenses thing, is there so we're watching the film, right? A lot of it is CG. You wouldn't tell. Especially in 3D, I can't. At a certain point, I gave up trying to pick out, But is there a specific lens that is modeled? Because at one point there's like lens flares. Like, is that a generic lens flare? Or did someone go like, oh, that's a K35, or like, oh, that's a Cook?
Well, no, you will see. What you will see is getting back into what's real. And then Jim said, okay, well, we talked about flares that bounce off things, flares that the lens introduces. And we did tests, and we said, okay, these lenses and stuff, look, this is how they're handling a flare from a light. This is a flare that comes off, a piece of shiny metal. And we looked at a lot of filters and stuff like that. And then Joe Lettieri at Weta, and Weta, of course, is Weta. They are the gods. Said, let me see if I can do this from my end, so you get exactly what you want when you want it, and it's not, and it looks real. So you'll see stuff like that. You'll see. I think they have some things where even there's the feeling of water dripping off in front of a house.
I flinched.
Wasn't that weird?
I flinched a bunch.
Yeah.
No, the first time it happened, I remember doing this to try to get it out of my eyes, and I was like, "What are you, stupid?"
Yeah.
Like,
I think that's an amazing thing, and also focus racks. Oh, because we're using simulcam and we know where everybody is. We can follow the action. The focus puller can follow the action. So we do the focus pull. When we're doing live action, we do the focus pull. We can see where it's supposed to be. And so that's all done. Everything done to, so there's some familiarity to it.
Right. And you don't have to model it in post, specifically with Spider.
Yeah, we except for the focus pulls we did live. Yeah. Because that I think would have been tougher. So that kind of stuff is really fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you had it.
I was just gonna say. Second question was it's not as distracting as I assumed it was when it first happened in the second film, but the switch between high frame rate and 24 just off and on. I was wondering what I couldn't really work out what the rhyme or reason was to it. Like, I figured for fast action, it would go to HFR, but not always.
Yeah. In Way of Water, I think they went to, because we shot at 48 frames. That was our go-to. We always had that. And then we worked out where the shutter angle should be, because we still wanted it to look natural. And so we did test on that. We figured that out. But Jim on Way of Water, whenever they went underwater, he went to 48 frames because he wanted something kind of a little bit magic about that world. But where he had it as kind of a go-to in his pocket, that when you get into certain scenes, either the camera's panning fast or people are moving so fast that in the left and right, this horizontal movement, you would get strobing, and in 3D, that's a really hard thing to take. It's really hard on the brain. So he would, I didn't notice it that much, but in certain scenes where it's chaos and people are really moving around, or fast action scenes, he would default to 48 frames. So, and these are all decisions that were made in post. So that's the basic rationale behind it. It was the first of, if we have strobing, which we normally have at 24 frames, it's going to take a toll on people's eyes, their brain system, and so that was the idea behind it.
It is funny how you guys have basically broken every rule, not rule, but common wisdom, where it's like, oh, Ang Lee tried high frame rate. A handful of people have tried high frame rate. They didn't like it. I like this one. But everyone under the sun's tried 3D, never took on. This looks great. CG, everyone complains about CG. This looks phenomenal. It's really the church of Jim Cameron.
The church of Jim Cameron is, if it's going to take 10 years to do this, it's going to take 10 years to do this. There's, in a way, and it's the thing this is a little side thing, but I watch him work on scenes, workout scenes, we're on a big, he has this stage. It's the most boring place in the world because all of it is flat surfaces. There's nothing there. But when you look at the monitor, you're just going, oh, okay. Oh my God. And he with his virtual camera, which he can have it at exponential distances. He says, okay, if I go 1 foot this way, it's 1 foot. Now rack that up by 10. So he says to his brain bar behind him, give me a 10-fold. He goes 1 foot and the camera is moving 10 feet. So he says, I want to get an overhead shot, make this 20-1. And he just goes like this with his camera. And it's like he's looking down to the trees or something. That's pretty amazing. But to watch him work something out, one thing I was watching was, from Fire and Ash, when the Ash people come into Bridgehead and land on at Bridgehead. You have helicopters landing at night. Yeah.
Oh my God, it looks so good. It looks so good.
Well,
literally, that was my note here.
Yeah. He worked that scene over and over and over and over. And he said, okay. And he would try different speeds. He would try different clusters. He would try. And he just, this is the thing about Jim that's just amazing. There's never, that's good enough. It's just, he just keeps working and working and working until he's got it right. And I think that every one of these scenes, he's building something in every scene that is just kind of a visual gift to the audience. And that's from whenever I've worked with him, he said, my feeling is that going to a movie is a fairly expensive thing. And people have got to feel like they've really seen something special when they come to see one of my movies. And that seems to be, that's a touchstone for him. But
has that always been the case? Like even going back to Titanic, did he feel that weight, or was when film going was a little more mainstream than it is at the current moment? Was it more about just putting on a good show?
Well, it was, still he was working his scenes out. Of course, that we weren't working in the same world as he is in Avatar. But there was still, we had a scene, especially when one of the reasons the schedule was what it was that he was trying to do things that hadn't been done before at the scale they'd been done. And our thing was, well, if plan A fails, you're going to hate plan B because it's going to be 10 times more complex than plan A.
Yeah.
It wasn't. He's not backing down from that. He just says, okay, I'm just going to up the ante here. And I think in some way, especially on Titanic, he did feel the pressures of the time and the expense. And you probably read he gave up certain fees and stuff like that. And he in that film, and it's really funny because on Avatar we could talk about things. I said, okay, I have this scene with an eclipse in it. And he would talk about the eclipse and he would tell me about the gases that were around this planet and how long it would take this. And he had a whole cosmology in his mind. when I first talked to him about Titanic, with just a brief phone call, because it's really funny because you think, okay, that's a big film. And I said, well, okay, Jim, let's just talk about the look of the film. He says, it's a period film. You know what period films look like. That was it.
It's going to be soft. It's going to be warm. What are you worried about?
Yeah, no. And I know, I mean, he was somewhat fashioning Titanic off of the things that he loved about the David Lean films. That's what was Dr. Zhivago, which is spectacle or a love story, an intimate love story set against a huge spectacle. And that's basically how he felt about Titanic. So, you know, in some ways that was really a good, thing because we didn't really talk so much about the specifics of stuff. But I did go on that. Then I ran over to the art department. I looked at everything the art department had then at that time because, visual effects being so expensive to do. And, and I looked at all the storyboards that they had and all the art that they had. And that gave me a darn good idea of kind of overall where it was going in, and that at night it was going to be quite a luminous, even though there was it was a new moon, but you're going to see everything. So,
I mean, that's, I love how, obviously this story's been beat to death, but it is funny how meticulous he was about factual reality until it didn't serve the story. I think that's the thing when a lot of people talk about, Neil gets mad at him for the Starfield, and Adam and Jamie get mad at him for the door thing that it's but it didn't serve the story. You can only be if you're slavish to the details, you've made a documentary and you should have just been there in the first place.
Yeah, we and flip ahead to Avatar: A Way of Water and this eclipse thing, and so how long does it last? How long does it last? And so we kind of figured out how long it lasted, and then a week later, maybe it would last this long. But in the film, it's how long did it take to do the scene? I mean, it was so abbreviated, there was his factual, and then what serves the film. Yeah. So, and I think any filmmaker anywhere has to come to that,
well,
yeah.
What's funny is, so the IMAX screening I went to was a guild screening. I don't know which guild because I'm not in any of them, but I walked up and they're like, "What guild are you in?" And I was like, I have a podcast. And the guy was like, "All right, in you go." And so in the guild screening, and also just hearing whispers about Avatar coming out again, the phrase I heard every single time, someone would say well, why is it back? Or why is it 3 hours or whatever? And the answer was always, it's James Cameron. He can do whatever the fuck he wants. Every single time. And so when you have that level of whatever it is, what restraint do you show? When you're the DP on one of these things, where do you go all right, we can do anything. The audience knows and expects us to do anything. What don't we do?
Well, first of all, just going back to the treatment was one thing we don't do, and I think Jim completely held to this throughout both avatars, was 3Ds just to immerse you in the movie. We're not using it in any way for shock value or playing with depth, or we're not doing anything of that. In fact, the camera convergence is going to converge on the eye, on the focal plane. We're not doing razzle dazzle that way. It'll come through, of course, the beautiful production design that was done and the action and stuff like that. I mean, what don't you do? I mean, that's kind of out of, I just think every day with just trying to get the scene. And there wasn't like, no, what don't you do? It's just, what do we have to do today? What do we have to accomplish? That for me, that was the
Well,
ground rule.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be perfectly honest, I ask that question all the time because I find it very instructive when you realize like, oh, like I've had people go, oh, you know what? We actually had a no handheld thing. You know, we had a no nodal pan thing. You know, like we never.
Right. Yeah.
But what do we have to do does speak to a great pre-production. You know, because like the whole like, oh, here's the rules we built melt away, and now you just have to game plan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's. I mean, my internal role, especially when we started this journey in Wellington with on these huge stages. We had lots of people, lots of human beings, lots of things that had to match up. We had that big sea dragon scene in the launch in the first Avatar. I mean, that was a huge set. So you go from that to basically scenes that are just with spider in a forest or something. And my ground rule was something that cinematographers often say is, well, I wanted my work to be invisible. You know, and there are some movies that I say, no, it's some movies are great because the cinematography is visible and wow, you know, that's fantastic. But I had to just take that to total heart and make sure what my team's contributions was invisible. And that to me is the great thing about the Avatar series, because when you look at it, you go, okay, he's employed 3,800 people on this movie. He's got all these different departments who are doing all these amazing things. There's all this magic happening in terms of what you can do in the computer world, and all these contributions. And over this time, he's thrown out all these what he calls provocations to people. He says, "I want this. See me in 2 months, and give me what I just asked for." You know, so he's got tons of really talented people doing that. But what I do love about the Avatar films is that at the end of the day, all that melts away and you just don't see it. You just see, you know, you see this beautiful environment and that you can immerse yourself in. And that's what I liked, is that there wasn't something that was so technical that was just jarring or just obvious. It was just what was left with was a beautiful visuals and story. So
yeah,
to me, that's a miracle. Yeah.
Well, you know, it's. I think that's, you know, the joke is always you can't bet against James Cameron because I think he never loses. You tell me, but there certainly seems like he never loses sight of the story and the audience, even if there is all this spectacle.
No, he doesn't, and when things really got awful on Titanic when we're so far behind, he once said in some kind of moment of waiting for something to happen, he said, you know, I think I'm just going to have to go back to 20th Century Fox and make them something a surefire action movie, because he says this movie has to be a love story that works and an action movie that works, and I'm not sure I have either. He says, and so there was that, and then flash forward to Avatar, and he said, Avatar: Way of Water. He says, well, this movie has to make around $2 billion.
Yeah,
and it was just like another day at the office, you know? And I go, who has that kind of confidence, you know?
Yeah.
There it goes.
That does bring up something I did want to ask you, because, you know, there's a few male directors that I look up to. There's obviously plenty of directors from all over the spectrum, but Jim Cameron obviously is one of them, and who I'm most interested in. And specifically for everything we're talking about. But I was wondering, as like a department head, as someone who leads a team on your own on a let's call it more traditional film, what are some of the lessons that you've learned from James that you've taken on into your own professional career?
That's a toughie, because when you're working in a James camera world, you know you're going to have a structure, a backstop in terms of well, if you need this, you're going to get this. The main thing I think is planning. Because especially with Avatar, but also with Titanic, you had to plan. You couldn't quite make it up as you went along. I mean, there's certain things on Titanic that happened. Like I said, I would look at something and say, well, this isn't up to stuff. This sucks. What am I going to do? And we panic is the mother of invention. And and then we come up with something that, oh, okay, I think we've got it now. But I and I know every cinematographer is different, and they approach what they do differently. And some people are quite instinctual and are quite intuitive, and it totally works for them. I feel like I have to have the planning lined up, and that every person in my team, all my other department heads, they have to know exactly what kind of weapons we have to bring to this scene, this day, what we're trying to accomplish. I can't just make up something and expect that it's going to be there. So for me, planning, and not only planning on what I want to do, but planning in terms of, well, what happens if, there's no sun, or it rains, or it's what do I have? How many options do I have? And and then I think also for cinematographers who are just kind of moving along, and they see something, they see something on screen and they say, I want to do that. I want to emulate that. And they hone their craft, and they work to this place where they're making beautiful images. But what happens is that now you're on a set, and now you're having to spin so many plates, because there's the beautiful image you want to make, and then say there's the reality of only having so much time. So, oh my God, I don't have enough time to do this. What's the next thing? What's the next thing that's simpler and elegant that I could do? So it's kind of building up a library of things, that you can do. Yeah, or decreasing the complication, maybe even if it's a minor restaging of a scene that helps get you out of jail in terms of, the time that you have to do things.
Yeah.
But yeah.
That does remind me, because I can't remember who I was talking to, but it was someone who had done a Marvel film. I know you did Ant-Man, that's fun. But I'm pretty sure it was a Marvel film, and they were talking about having to light for CG extensions,
Yeah.
And it just never occurred to me how much, this is going to sound dumb, especially after all we talked about, but it hadn't occurred to me at the time that, oh yeah, you've got to it's not just a white light, as you said earlier. It's like, there's all kinds of stuff that if you're given the tools and you're doing it properly, like, you have to fake. And so I did want to know that in lighting Avatar, did you find yourself going like, ooh, I can take that onto a stage where there's to emulate, because obviously the hardest thing in the world is to emulate real sun, but there's all kinds of things that you have to fake in a stage.
Mm-hmm.
Was that instructive?
It was. I think by the time the Avatar rolled around, I had kind of a library of things that to create. I know that this instrument is going to give me this kind of sun, and it's great. I mean, we had some fairly large scenes that were sunlit based, or even the Sea Dragon scene, we had a sun coming in from one direction, and yet we didn't really have the space, the distance to put a single source out there. So we go, okay, how can we cobble together in the viewer's imagination what looks like a single sun source? And we have to use 4 sources here to do this. Where we have a scene, again, I'm going back to the first Avatar, where the bridgehead is being built, and God, just forgot a name. Anyway, they're walking
Sigourney Weaver?
through down. No, it wasn't Sigourney Weaver. Edie Falco.
Oh,
she was playing.
I
this
always
general.
called her Nurse Jackie.
Nurse Jackie. Nurse Jackie is giving and they're walking a distance, and we're doing it, in a stage, and then okay, how do you cobble all this distance together to make it look like a single source? You have to learn things, and you go, okay, well, look, we can make this here that looks like they kind of fell into a shadow, and we disguise going from light 1 to light 2, and then something else for light 3. It's time consuming, but yeah, I hope I somewhat answered your
I mean,
question.
it was kind of I figured I'd just ask anyway, but I figured you're like, I already know that, because your career has been, to your point, are those your photographs?
I'm in my second career. I have been, wow. I'm taking on being the granddaughter and family photographer.
There you go.
And I just put them up on that's my family back there.
I was going to say when you open the window, my secret is I've got an 8-foot quasar tube here because it's pitch black out.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah. Sometimes I didn't do that, but often sometimes I'll get my one. There you go. Excellent. Yeah. Perfect. Yeah. Yes. Loud. Great.
Yeah. Movie magic. I love Edie Falco, by the way. Me and my girlfriend just rewatched Nurse Jackie. Speaking of excellent women, I did want to ask, Sigourney Weaver obviously has had one of the greatest careers in film history, in my opinion. Did you find, this is another leadership question, did you find her kind of instructing maybe other people, other castmates, maybe even other crewmates? Like, did she was she more just like team player, or did she kind of take a matriarch role in any capacity?
No, on that film, she was team player. And also sometimes I'm going to open this curtain because I can see I'm getting down to pitch black here. Okay. No. And a lot of the scenes that she was in, there was a lot of kind of technical legerdemain going on, and it was like we could shoot those scenes handheld, and she could do this or that, but she is hemmed in by kind of like the vision for which way you're supposed to be shooting and stuff like that. And so she came on. She was very much a team player in that capacity. Again, there's some room to move, because we can do handheld, we can do Steadicam, but also because of the way that the virtual characters are laid out, we can't reblock them instantaneously. So you have to somewhat stay with the blocking of what was done in CGI months ago. Right.
You're talking about the where we see actually her. I meant more like as the let's say the eldest actor in the room. Like if the younger actors were like, if you noticed any like leadership on her part, because I'm always fascinated to see when you've got like people going like, all right, I'm willing to teach here, or is it all just like straight across the board? We're all on the same team. I'm not going to tell you what to do type stuff.
I think in these situations, because again, probably the largest dog in the room. The alpha dog is the technology, and we're all
Sure.
kind
Yeah.
of yeah. So no, but she was everybody was great there.
It does seem like, especially when you're working together for some of these people for ever, they're all going to be friends. I got to let you go, but the last question we have, and he'll make it brief. I have my intern Jackson now. This is the final segment where he's been sitting on, and he's a film student at Arizona State. And so,
hi Jackson. Hey,
howdy,
hi.
how's it going?
Good.
Yeah, I've been lurking in here while you guys have been talking. Sorry, my leg's not as great as y'all's. I'm just dealing with a single fan here, back here for Christmas. Yeah, I guess, kind of like in this world of Avatar, I feel like it might be easy. It is just kind of my thinking, but like you kind of getting lost in all the technical aspects of everything, and there's all this CGI going on, and like I guess it's more of like a personal question, as like how do you kind of stay grounded in like your beliefs that you have with traditional cinematography, and how do you kind of apply that to the CGI and Avatar world? If that makes sense. Like how do you?
Yes, just speaking to that is because now you have all this technology, and we mentioned it a little bit before. You're taking that technology but you're trying to bend it back toward what the audience, a filmic experience that the audience is used to. So hence, we do. There's stuff that doesn't look quite perfect, or and it's getting back to the whole like lens flare or focus or this or that. It's just the issue, and that's why there's such a joy in films that is simpler, is that by the time we get to this point where we're on the stage, just a lot has been set in motion that would be very, very, very difficult to rewire at that time. That years or months after, it was decided. And that's not to say that Jim didn't have an idea, like maybe a week before we were supposed to film the scene, and he'd get his actors in, and he'd either give them new lines or slightly different blocking. But that was pretty much all that was settled before we got to the set that day.
Yeah, I like how it was interesting how you also said that, like he relies a lot on improv as well. Like, and that must be like, it's just like you're going into it. Is that, you said like it's like a week out kind of thing, or is it kind of a day of where it'll be like, okay, I'm gonna throw in a line here or two, and you got to kind of adapt on set.
I know we have to go.
That's my last question. Sorry, you don't have to answer.
No, but I'm going to answer because it says what we work for maybe an hour and a half before Jim comes to the set, and the greatest thing is to look at it and go like, you look at the rehearsal and go, wow, there's nothing wrong with that. We are ready to go, which means that there's going to be an hour of fudging this, moving that, taking this and that till he gets it. So there's definitely stuff he can move and do with, especially if you've got a lot of human actors or something, he'll rework that. But there's always room to do something. But you just don't have as much room as you would if you were standing on a set, a real set.
It's been phenomenal, yeah. And as much time as you're willing to give us in the future, we'd love to have you back.
Okay, all right, great, thank you. It was lovely to hang out with you.
Yeah.
All right, take care. Bye.
Frame and Reference is an Albot production, produced and edited by me, Kenny McMillan. If you'd like to support the podcast directly, you can do so by going to frameandrefpod.com and clicking on the Patreon button. It's always appreciated, and as always, thanks for listening.